introduction every time I go somewhere because you are definitely the best hype man that I know of. So anyway, so this month the theme is friends, and tonight I'm actually going to be speaking on a lesson somewhat antithesis to that because I'm going to be talking about frenemies, and the text will be Psalm 55:12 through 14. You want to grab your Bibles because I'm back to my big brother Alvin stuff tonight. I'm not going to have a PowerPoint or 3 points. I'm just going to try to make a point. So it's just going to be me talking and giving y'all a few things to think about, and then we'll of course open it up at the end as we always do. But when we talk about friends, right? Everyone on here knows what a friend is, and hopefully everyone on here has a friend, right? A friend is a person with whom one has a relationship of mutual affection. And the key word there is mutual because both sides benefit from the relationship. One person provides and receives, and it goes vice versa, which means it's not one-sided. A friendship is a bond. And if it doesn't work both ways, then you don't have a friendship. So in short, a friend is someone who you love and who loves you, someone who you respect and who respects you, someone who you trust and who trusts you. Not an enemy is the exact opposite of that. An enemy is an adversary. It is someone who is hostile towards you, someone who wants to harm you, maybe even kill you, destroy you in some way, shape, or form. So it is impossible for a friendship to exist in the same relationship as someone being your enemy, right? But we have all probably heard this word frenemy, right? And the frenemy is what? A person who is really friendly towards you, probably though because they want some type of benefit from you, right? It's someone who might dislike you or despise you or resent you in some way, but they're hanging around because they want to benefit, which means more than likely they're not going to do anything to benefit you. So when we're talking about a friend and we're saying there has to be mutual, a frenemy, you're not getting the mutual benefit out of it. So since you're not getting the mutual benefit out of it, and there is no concern of mutual benefit from a frenemy, really it's a deceptive relationship of someone pretending to be a friend. So in short, a frenemy is really an enemy, right? But sometimes we just don't know that they're an enemy. So that's why sometimes we have those relationships and we keep those people around and going. So jumping into the text, just a little setup, jumping into the text, Psalm 55:12 through 14. And if you read the whole chapter, then you will see that there's a tenor of David in this chapter of he's in distress. And you can almost just tell by reading that David is going through something and it's really getting to him. But most of the chapter, he's speaking of distress from his enemies. But in verses 12 through 14, he speaks of this distress or this conflict coming from a friend. And it reads, if an enemy were insulting me, I could endure it. If a foe were rising against me, I could hide. But it is you, a man like myself, my companion, my close friend, with whom I once enjoyed sweet fellowship at the house of God as we walked about among the worshipers. So when you look at that text, a few things jump out to me here. One, he's saying if an enemy were insulting me, I can endure it. Well, why? Because we expect that from our enemies, right? We expect for conflict to come from our enemies. We expect attacks from our enemies. So usually we're prepared for that. We're on guard for that. That's why he said, I can endure that if that were happening with my enemies. But see, when betrayal comes from someone who thinks is a friend, it hurts us, right? Because there's an expectation of loyalty and trust. David even says, if an enemy were rising against me, I could hide. It's basically saying, I'm going to avoid them. I can avoid an enemy. I know, okay, my enemy's over here. I'm not going there, or I'm on the lookout for my enemies. But with your friends, You don't hide from your friends. You don't avoid your friends. Actually, it's the opposite. You open up more to your friends. You make yourself vulnerable to your friends. So when we're attacked by a friend, it takes us off guard and it hurts a little more, right? And that's where that saying comes from, like those who are closest to you are the ones who can hurt you most. That's because those people know you better. They're on the inside. And plus, you have usually, if you don't know their frenemy or someone who despises you, you have a love for them and you're disappointed when the situation goes south. So what I want to do is examine a couple of David's relationships here that might have inspired the writing here in Psalm 55, but the two relationships I want to look at is his relationship with Saul and his relationship with his son Absalom. And it's funny because both of those people had issues with David's position, but kind of in opposite ways. Saul didn't want David promoted, and Absalom wanted David demoted. So let's look at this Saul relationship real quick. And what I want us to think about here when we're looking at Saul and when we're connecting this with frenemies is sometimes you've done nothing wrong. Sometimes you have frenemies and you've done nothing wrong at all. Saul's issue was his insecurity and his jealousy. 1 Samuel 18:6-7, a text a lot of us have heard before. You know, David had came back from killing Goliath, and when the men had pursued the Philistines afterwards, the women were singing, you know, Saul has killed his thousands and David his tens of thousands. Now, obviously that made Saul angry, and he's like, okay, well, they credited him with that. What more can he have but the kingdom? And I thought about that, and to me, that was just very weird when you sit down and read the text, because David, this was they said this right after the men had came back from killing the Philistines. So David killed Goliath, which we all know about, and then what happened was that gave courage to the Israelites, the men of Israel and Judah, to actually pursue the Philistines and kill them and come back. Now, if David had really only been credited with one body at that time, my question is, why is Saul taking this literally? Like, okay, David has killed his tens of thousands, when really he was only credited with Goliath at that point in time. That was interesting to me. Now, unless, this is my technical brain thinking, unless, which I don't have any evidence of this, they're saying when maybe the men of Israel and Judah pursued the Philistines, maybe it was tens of thousands of them that they killed. And since David had kind of started the whole, you know, the whole victory by killing Goliath, maybe that's what they're crediting to him. But I don't think that was it. I think what made Saul mad, and I think what the women meant when they were singing that, was David is greater than Saul. David is a greater warrior than Saul. And when they put David in that place of superiority over Saul, that's what enraged Saul, right? Because he saw this young boy who had accomplished something, one, that he was scared or too much of a coward to accomplish, two, something he probably never would have accomplished. He knew that was going to put him on a trajectory to do things that he could never ever dream of doing. So he actually felt rejected in that moment, and he already had insecurities because the Spirit of God had left him before. So Saul was dealing with things within himself, right, that he's kind of projecting onto David at this point. And that's the thing with insecurities. Most insecurities, whether they're created internally by a person or externally, usually come from some event in the past. And sometimes we can also cause insecurities in other people. So we have to be careful with that, right? But we have to ask ourselves, is this person's insecurities coming from something I did, or is it coming from an outside source? And if you didn't create it, more than likely, you're not going to be able to fix it, right? Saul was already insecure, right? Because he was challenged by Goliath. He failed to do anything. He sent a young boy out to fight for him. He willingly sent him out to fight. He even tried to give him his armor because I guess he wanted David to be successful, or so he thought, until David started getting praised. But when you think about it, if Saul, as a prior warrior and king, was scared to fight him, he sent a young teenager out there to fight him. Saul actually sent David to die, right? Because Saul knew, because the challenge from Goliath was, send your best man out here to fight me, and whoever wins between me and him, the other person is going to be subject to the other person. So Saul knew that if David didn't win this, it wasn't going to be good for Israel. And really, Saul didn't really think David could win, right? But David does for Saul, what Saul wouldn't do, what Saul was supposed to do, and he gets celebrated for it. And now, like, Saul's insecurity complex is multiplied. So what I'm trying to say here is we have to be careful with insecure people, right? Because sometimes we can do exactly what they want us to do, what they need us to do, what they ask us to do, something that they probably can't or won't do for themselves or can't do for themselves. And it might actually provide them with a great benefit, like it did here. David killing Goliath actually spared Saul's life for a while longer. And that person might still blame you or resent you for it. So be careful when we're dealing with insecure people, because you can't fix it and you will get blamed sometimes, even when you're a hero. Now, not only was Saul insecure, Saul was jealous, right? Here's the thing about frenemies, right? A frenemy will hide somewhere. They'll let you fight their battle, and then they'll get jealous of your success. That's what a frenemy will do. But a friend will actually fight that battle with you. So here's probably my first point of emphasis for tonight. Don't fight someone else's battles, especially if they're not fighting with you. Don't do it. If that person's not willing to get down and fight with you, don't be trying to save them. Don't be trying to save them. You have to help yourself, right? Another thing, a true friend isn't jealous of your success. They're happy for your success, right? A true, real close friend is going to celebrate your success as if they were your success. And I know all of y'all know this. I know all of y'all have some great friends who, when they win, it's just like you win, right? And that's the way it should be. That's the way it should be. Even if your friend get praised 10 times a year, you only get praised once. You should be happy of your friend's success, because guess what? A lot of times your friend's success will actually bless you. I have two of my good friends are physicians. One is my line brother. I've known him over 20 years. He's a family practitioner, and one of my other good friends is a pediatrician. And I ain't gonna tell y'all how much co-pays and deductible money they have saved me by just being able to tap into them and call them when something comes up, right? Every year it seems like when I change or get a new doctor, because I've moved so much, I have to go, you get your free wellness visit. And then, especially if it's a new doctor, they want you to come back for your lab work. And they just want you to come back to say everything's good. You have to pay that copay and that deductible. I say, nah, man, just send me my lab work. Just email it to me. It's my stuff. I'm allowed to get it, email it to me. As soon as they email me my lab work, I email it right to my line brother. I say, hey, everything good? Everything good. Okay, cool. Right. He told me I need to take more vitamin D, so get a vitamin D supplement. But that saved me probably an hour of my time going to the doctor, having to wait, extra money, because guess what? I'm happy he's a doctor. I'm there to celebrate with him. I was proud as if it were me. Right. So remember, your friends can bless you. My friend who's a pediatrician, having 2 kids, the parents on the line know kids, they're going to do something and hurt themselves almost once a month. It seems like it's something going on. It's a cold you don't understand, or some different type of runny nose, or some different type of mucus. And you can the kids will run your bills up, right? But it's good that I have a friend who is a pediatrician who I can just call and say, hey, this is what's going on. Do we really need to go to the doctor? Do we really need to go to the ER? What's going on? Tell us what to do. But if I was that type of person, it's like, oh, this person think they all that because they a physician or they had this MD behind their name, right? I wouldn't benefit, from that relationship. So true friends, they're happy, they celebrate with you, and really, when you do that, actually the blessing will come back to you. And when I think about this with Saul, if he had just celebrated David, he could have had a much better end to the rest of his life, right? Instead of spending his last days trying to hunt David down, kill him, out the war, sleeping in caves and all this stuff, he could have just sat back on the throne, let David go fight the battles, kind of like our presidents do here in the United States. Sit back, command the military, and just chill. But that was too hard for him to do, right? That was too hard for him to do. But I started this by saying sometimes we don't do anything wrong. David did nothing wrong. As a matter of fact, he did everything right. And based on the insecurities and jealousy of Saul, it turned David's life upside down for years, which is why I said, hey, don't fight battles with people if they're not going to fight with you, right? It's okay to try to help people in life, and be the best friend that you can be, right? But when it starts to harm you, it's time for you to step away from that situation, right? Because an insecure and jealous friend will never see the true blessing that you are on their life. All right. So that's that. Now, sometimes you've done something wrong, right? We all human. We've all messed up. Sometimes you've done something wrong in a relationship, and we're gonna switch to Absalom now, right? So that story is a little longer to recap, but I'm gonna do a quick recap. But if you have never heard or read that story, it's in 2 Samuel chapters 13 through 18. So it's kind of a long read. But Absalom's issue with David was resentment. Basically, Amnon was David's first son. Absalom was David's third son. They had different mothers, so they were half brothers, right? Absalom had a half sister named Tamar, who Amnon he really desired. Amnon sets it up to where he gets and he rapes Tamar. And Absalom finds out about it. He's furious about it, right? Then David comes to know of it or learn of it, and he did nothing about it. Messed up. He was the king. He should have fixed that situation. But when he did nothing about it, it made Absalom more furious to the point where he resented David. So Absalom takes it upon himself, like, okay, so David, you're not gonna do nothing about it. Well, he sets it up and he kills his brother Amnon because he's like, you raped my sister, so and you only my half brother, you my whole sister. So he killed him, right? He killed him. Now, after he kills him, David, of course, loves his son Amnon, it's his first son. So David kind of has nothing to do with Absalom for a while after that, right? And he kind of shrugged him to the side a little bit. And then that just infuriates Absalom to the point where he tries to kill David, right? He comes back for the throne. He basically commits treason and builds up an army to come take over. Of course, it didn't end up too well for Absalom, but the point is, because David didn't fix that situation, he let things harbored that shouldn't have harbored, right? Absalom resented him. He had an anger and indignation that resulted in, of course, it was unfair treatment or what he thought wasn't fair. And then when people have feelings of resentment, they usually harbor feelings for revenge. Obviously, Absalom did. And resentment, a lot of time results from people not adequately expressing their feelings after they have suffered from a painful experience, right? And Absalom failed to do the one thing that probably could have changed this whole situation, is to just go to David and talk to him about it and say, you know what, this happened to my sister. I didn't like this situation. What are you going to do about the situation, or what can be done about the situation? It probably could have gotten to the point where, Of course, David as king had reign to do a lot of things, but maybe he would have said, Amnon, you've taken this woman's virtue. You have to marry her. Instead of putting her to the side, you have to marry her. And so she wouldn't be, kind of dishonored as would have been in that day, even though she was raped, it wasn't anything that she could control, right? A friend will trust that he or she can come and talk to you and be honest about, how they feel about what you did. A frenemy, though, will just resent you and find a way to try to get back at you, right? That's what a frenemy will do. So when you mess up, which we're all going to do, and sometimes we don't realize that we messed up, just own it, right? When we realize that we messed up and see what we can do to fix the situation. Because if we don't, then that actually makes us the frenemy, right? So leave with a couple of questions as I try to start my final descent here. Do you have frenemies, right? Do you have frenemies? Hopefully, if we don't, but if we do, most of the time we don't know about them. But if you do, or you suspect someone to be a frenemy, then just pray about the situation, right? And go talk to the person, and let them know how you feel, so you can see if there's a way to reconcile a relationship. But realize, though, that it's not your job to fix them. It's your job to fix whatever you did wrong in a situation, but you cannot fix that person. So just realize that, right? Whether it be a friendship, a dating relationship, any kind of relationship that you suspect that of, do everything that you can do. And if an issue still exists, then realize that you just might have to disengage from that relationship and love that person from afar. Okay. Y'all know me, I love quotes, right? So first quote of the night that came to me as I was preparing this lesson. And I'm still working on it, so I'm gonna get it perfected at some point. But here it is: we waste too much time on people who don't appreciate us, and we don't spend enough time investing in the people who love and need us. All right, I'm gonna run that back. We waste too much time on people who don't appreciate us, and don't spend enough time investing in people who love and need us, right? Waste is trash, is dead, is gone. And investment multiplies. So just think about that. Are you the frenemy? Ask yourself, are you the frenemy? Are you posing as a friend in a relationship, right, that you're only seeking to get some benefit from? Are you jealous, envious, resentful of a friend because of your own security? Not anything that they've done, but something that's going on inside you. If so, you might want to take a look in the mirror, because this is what I'm gonna tell you. Being jealous of another person's success is not going to make you more successful, and it's not going to make them any less successful, right? You cannot block that person's blessings from God, and you're probably blocking your own blessings. So if you had that jealousy, envy, or resent, you better let that go, because all you're doing is killing yourself, probably sending yourself to an early grave. And that person going to continue to prosper if God wants them to. You can't stop it. So don't be a frenemy, right? God tells us not, the word says, do not covet your neighbor, right? What this means is for you to be happy with what God has blessed you with. Now, I can't say, and I probably have, I don't remember it, have resented my friend, but I'm not going to lie and say I haven't coveted my neighbor. I haven't looked at some people and been like, man, I want what they have. Why they had that and I had this, right? I've probably done that. But guess what? And this is a lesson to me more than anybody else on this call. When we're not happy with what God gives us, it's disrespectful to him. In my opinion, you're telling God, you're not good enough for me, or what you've done is not good enough for me. Just imagine you give somebody, Christmas is around the corner, you give a loved one, they have a Christmas list of 10 things, you give them 8 things, and they unhappy or dissatisfied or unpleased with it. How would that make you feel? But that's what we do to God. Don't covet, man. Just be happy. Whatever, first of all, everything you have and everything you are is because of God anyway. So you wouldn't have what you have, even if it's not as much as someone else if it weren't for God. So just be happy. I think J. Cole had a song called Love Yours. So love yours, right? Um, and also remember, like, don't be jealous of your friend, man. Your friend's success can actually bless you. It might just actually bless you one day. So um, just remember that. Now, as I conclude with my final thoughts on this whole friendship topic, you know, going back to the definition of a friend, remember the key is mutuality. I think one reason our friends hurt us more than even our family sometimes is because we get to choose our friends, right? We don't choose our blood relatives unless, we have kids, but those are only blood relatives that we actually get to choose. But friendships, sometimes when a family member does something, it is what it is. Like, hey, they my blood, I'm stuck with them, but I didn't like it, whatever. But when a friend, because we does it is different because we chose that person, right? There was some intentionality on our behalf to have a bond or a relationship with that person. So that's why it hurts sometimes more when a friend betrays us, right? And but here's the best example I can use. What I try to look at when I choose friends, and hopefully it blesses someone else. And that's my lovely wife, right? She literally started as a friend, and then obviously literally she became my family because I married her. And we don't always agree. And personality wise, we are totally opposites. She shop on Amazon too much and she shop at Target too much, right? Sometimes yeah, we get on each other's nerves. It happens, to be honest with you, right? All my married people know we get on each other's nerves. Um, and I might be a little mad tomorrow when I go outside and see another Amazon package, but right, it's all good. It's all good. The reason I put the ring on her finger is because I knew she would have my back through thick and thin. She would never do anything to intentionally hurt me or harm me or betray my trust, right? I knew it. So I had to make her my family. I had to because I knew she would be down with me for the rest of my life. Um, I'm a fan of the Fast and Furious movies, and one of the movies, and Diesel said, I think somebody came to him and said, "I have a mission: get your friends together." And Vin Diesel said, "I don't have friends; I have family." Right? We all have associates. We all have people we have to deal with on a daily basis. All have a lot of people we're in contact with. But when choosing friends, right? Choosing friends, have the goal of making them your family. Choose people who are going to love you, celebrate you, have mutual affection for you, and be there when times get rough, and people who you want to be stuck with for life. Because a true friend is one who walks in when the rest of the world walks out. The lesson is yours.